Green Tide making a sleepy resurgence. Whenever the meta gets too elite and too bully-esque, like tough guys can't kill me, I'm only a couple models, blah blah blah, playing a tough game. Green Tide sneaks its way into being discussed. Oh wait, hold on. I had one more thing to say. Someone, where's my boy? He said this. Sorry guys, if you're rewatching this and I interrupted your flow, but someone right here mentioned it. Tiger Melts. This is why I love you, Tiger. He said Ghaz being another war boss and being able to lead boys and knobs is too neat. That is true. Sorry, I thought you said something else anyways, but leading knobs is something that he can do, and I think that people should kind of look for it. And I'm glad that you reminded me. I hope I said that in the last Bully Boy section. So let's move on. Green Tide, like I was saying. So as the meta always adjusts to being a more elite style, and I'm going to go more for killing instead of playing the mission, Green Tide finds its way. And I think the fact that Ghaz can now be brought into Green Tide with the boys is a huge difference. Back when Green Tide was more at its peak and more favored, I would still take Ghaz, but I'd have to take Mega Knobs, right? Because I was trying to give all the boys lethal so they can actually kill stuff. And then Ghaz also acts as a bulwark in a way, acts as a deterrent also. So actually, he doesn't act as a bulwark. He really acts as a deterrent, and the boys are more like a bulwark, right? So what I mean by that is how he would function here or even in the past is if you have Ghaz in the Green Tide list, let's say someone has, I'm throwing out something out there like Thunderwolf Cavalry. I'll just put it out there, right? And Thunderwolf Cavalry um, can just run into Orc Boy units. If we're talking about like something like Stormlance or something, crash into a mob of boys. The mob of boys punch them back, maybe kill like two or three of them. Then the dudes fall back again. They charge back into the boys again, right? You can't, as an Orc player, necessarily let someone repeatedly do that to your Green Tide list. There are the units that the boys will struggle to clear completely off them. But if the unit is able to engage with them and then fall back and re-engage with them again, maybe a Terminator style of unit as well that can hit them hard enough and then fall back and hit them again. Um, that would erode your Green Tide too quickly. Ghaz acts as a take here is well, the enemy now has to respect his damage, and they will pretty much auto avoid him when he's on the field. And in that case, then you get to control the space around him between the blood surges, the advance in charge, regrowing models. It becomes interesting in that way. So a lot of the time I found, well, I would, the enemy would say, well, my real plan is to stand here and be a jerk and try to stat check you. But now that you got a bunch of boys, I have to kind of worry about that, right? That's where Ghaz matters so much, and he becomes interesting because he can reroll wounds with his unit and this for the CP and stuff like that. So Ghaz is pretty much an auto take in the new variation of Green Tides. Then we go into mob very size. So I've definitely talked to some of the best players in the world that play Green Tide that say 120 boys is the strongest, but goddamn, it chews up your clock. And I've also talked to some of the best guys and said 90 is plenty enough. You get a little bit more tools. It helps with your clock time, and people still have a problem chewing through it as long as you don't let them get the initiative off you. That being said, the real development here is the Battlewagons, right? A battle wagon or even two sometimes are being incorporated in Green Tide lists where you keep one of your mobs safe, makes your deployment easier, a little bit more conservative in that way. And then the mob comes out, it also kind of develops a little bit of speed from disembarking from this wagon. So battle wagons are to be considered. Now, we have Snickrot, of course, for the reasons mentioned earlier. A big deal in this detachment tool that I think is always looked at kind of like as an afterthought are actually the enhancements. So the enhancement, I think it's cunning but brutal, or sorry guys, you get to see the names so often they start to overlap. But the enhancement of getting additional CP is also quite important. So if you're going to put the character that's holding that within the battle wagon, he can still draw CP out from the enemy on a 3+. Now you might say, well, Texas, I'm already doing that. I'm playing with boys. I'm an objective. I can probably put my grats on my home and I can still do it. I get it. But you want more because the strats are really what fuel this detachment so much. So something like the enhancement that gives you additional CP is typically slept on, yet I very much actually recommend it. So even though the detachments aren't super appealing sometimes, I still recommend leaning into at least two or three of them when you make your Green Tide list. And now as for the flex options, again, you hear a lot about Storm Boys because they can still fall, they can still advance and charge, and they fly. So when people set up like little screens and stuff like that, you can't just be completely held back from your boys with just some stupid screen. The storm boys can jump over or go interact with those screens before they get in the way. So a lot of the time, people do think they matter a lot, and the flying ability makes it so that they don't get slowed by everything that's standing around them. I know that sounds obvious, but like if you take bikers or flash kits or whatever, and you're like, well, they're going to do my little tasks. To be honest, they might not even get there because there's so many bodies and stuff there in the way of them. Then we have commandos. Again, commandos can be overly tapped into for Green Tide, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean people might go up to 30 and 20 mandos, really play that full infill game. You know, I might only have 90 boys, but maybe I have more commandos. So I have my boy type bodies, but they already have a built up invuln. Well, I guess they already have in this attachment, but they're going to retain it regardless of the unit size. They're going to have an invuln to shooting, and they're going to be -1 to hit. Plus, they're going to be right in your face. Maybe offset the enemy's ability to take up firing lanes to shoot into your backfield. So, Mandos are a good flex, and I think you should consider what size you take with them when you are taking them. Then we go for the buggies. So, the buggies is a funny flex and twist, but among all of the best lists I've seen and the players I talked to, all the buggies have been considered for the various reasons I mentioned at the very beginning of this video. So if you're still around and you're still watching it, leave a like. You're awesome. I love you. Because you know we getting into it all. But the buggies do have some more debuff support value in this detachment. So if you're taking a Boom Docket Snazwagon and using its -1 to hit aura, and because you want to offset some of the punching from World Eaters, for example, cool, great job, that works. Want to slow down the Custode's ability to punch you away? That's another good way to use it. But of course, you have the custom booster blasters. So say that you're worried about them just shooting away your debuff. Well, you can shoot them instead and take away that debuff. So I like that as well. Those are the two favorite support buggies in this detachment that you can also consider, and they're quite cheap. Then we have DACA support, not as often, not as prolific, but there were times where people would either bring flash kits and trucks, or they would bring them back and utilize the mobile truck bunker, docket bunker, right? Where they're giving it +1 to hit and letting the unit shoot out of it. Because people sometimes would say, well, I just need to kill those stupid little screens. Anyways, and I don't like that they can just stand in front of me, therefore I want to be able to shoot them. So a lot of the time it's really more a small arms fire thing, not a uh destroy tough enemy units thing, because like I said, now we have gas. And then last but not least, there are archetypes developing I haven't been able to play with, so I can't really say much about it, where you take just Ghaz and maybe one or two other characters, call it a day, and then just saturate the field with 120 boys, 30 commandos, whatever it may be. So I think that kind of real hard skew, of course, always has its place, because when you go to a really hard skew, the enemy just doesn't have the tool to keep doing that, and you're leaning into the more off meta aspect of Green Tide, which is just having more bodies. But then you're fighting the clock and your back and the ability to keep replicating that. Sorry, I got something in my eye. So there's other factors, anyways, right? So with that being said, let's take a look at the Green Tide lists. So here we have um the Green Tide list that we have put forward. Sorry, I don't know why I brain farted there. This one is quite character heavy. So I like this one first. This one was more our boy John Holbrook style of list from what we talked about and what I've seen from him. And it has everything that I kind of appreciate last time I played Green Tide as well. So we have Boston Nickrock, Ghazghkull Thraka. We have Painboy with Bloodthirsty Belligerents with Ghazghkull as unit typically. We have a Painboy again with a War Boss. Then we have two more war bosses without enhancement, and then a cunning but brutal weird boy. So cunning but brutal weird boy can go with the 10 boys. Each war boss can go with another one of the 20-man unit of boys. And then the pain boy as well gets with the unit, and so does Gaz's unit. Then of course all those units takes up a battle wagon for its safety as well, and it's for its positioning. Then you have the Boom Daka, as I mentioned earlier, trying to really offset that melee thing. Because to be honest, typically the only problem we're going to face is the melee matchup and the ability to clear up these entire bricks of boys. That being said, just two more units of Gretchen and then one unit of commandos, because I absolutely need the commandos so that the enemy can't just play the mid-table game. Green Tide needs to reach and cross that mid-table line to enforce its will. And if you ever let the enemy start or push you be past beyond that mid-table line, you are losing the positioning part of the game, which means there's a good chance that your boys aren't making engagements where you want them to be, which is in the mid-table on the objectives in the fights, where they get the most advantage due to their OC and their stratagems. So make sure you keep that up, and that's why commandos really matter in a big way. Shout out to our sponsors, the Baron of Dice, as they helped us do our wall tactic dice. So shout them out. Check them out in the description, 5% off in the discount because nobody likes taxes. And shout out to Baron of Dice. They allow us to do our paint competition. So thank you very much to them. If you enjoyed the clip, check out the full video here. If you'd like to see more tactics, click here.
Let's get stuck in, lads!